Welcome to the Real Life, Real Kitchen podcast. Real talk for curious mums reclaiming food, family, and community. I'm Zoë F. Willis, English mother of many, mentor to mums. And if you're reheating your tea again, this is your place. So pop the kettle on as each week I chat with folks who feed, heal, and hold our communities together. You don't need perfection to pull up a chair, just curiosity and the courage to ask, what if there's another way?
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Real Life, Real Kitchen podcast. And today I've got the wonderful Carly Church all the way from California. Carly Church is the founder of the website wegotyourmama.com, and she herself is a mother of three, former entertainment industry professional, and the founder of this wonderful website. It's actually more than a website. It's an increasingly growing platform with a podcast element to it, and it's a movement dedicated to supporting mothers through pregnancy, postpartum, and really every stage beyond. She's also the author of We Got You Mama, the no-nonsense expert-packed guide to going from surviving to thriving. I mean, I could have done with that. First time round, the first of what will be a series designed to help mothers feel supported, informed, and empowered during one of the most vulnerable seasons of their lives. She's known for her refreshingly honest voice, sharp humor, and intensely deep empathy. She brings both lived experience and thought leadership to conversations around maternal mental health, which is a huge topic. That in itself, Carly, is a massive topic. Also, the postpartum wellness and the systemic gaps that leave so many mothers unsupported. She herself navigated anxiety, depression, and years of undiagnosed ADHD. So she's experienced firsthand how motherhood can both crack you open and reveal how little infrastructure exists to truly care for mums. That realization sparked the creation of We've Got Your Mama, where Carly now builds expert collaborations. I mean, really, it's a village in many ways. Books, retreats, and tools that help women build this village and move from survival mode into sustainable living. She's also a speaker and a guest, and she's equal parts insightful and hilarious, blending storytelling, research, and real talk to spark connection, relief, and meaningful change. I mean, this is just fantastic. And I think with so many women of our generation as well, we've gone through transitions, starting one career and never imagining we'd end up where we are, really embracing motherhood and supporting other women. Carly, could you give me a sort of bit of a rundown how you've gone from, how you became model, actress, and then you've ended up here creating this fantastic online platform and village?
Oh, man. It's been, I think, 25 years plus in the entertainment industry. And it's not the loveliest place to to be in and reside in for your entire life. And so when things really started shifting, I launched, I owned a Fit for Mom franchise, which is mommy and baby workouts, postpartum workouts, wellness programs. And I did that, and I coached and I trained women, and really people came for the workout, but they stayed for the community, right? And that's what is needed, I think, in every niche, in every business, in every group. Even in my modeling and acting years, I relied on my village of, fellow students in my acting classes, right? I felt like it was important to always stay up on your craft, and, to be a real artist, continue studying and learning. And so, at that time, I relied on, the people in my class, to learn from. And now, after having 3 kids and, I don't know, being put through the ringer, as they say, I found that there was a lot of things I didn't know, and a lot of things I wish I would have known. And then I basically, through this other company I owned, and learning from the moms and connecting them to experts and to each other, I was like, this needs to be my mission,
Mhm,
really,
mhm.
here on out, to do that and use my expertise from the entertainment industry to speak on stages, to use my voice. It's a comfortable space for me already. And the more research I do, the more writing I do, um, the heavier it can feel sometimes, right? Learning all the stats and all the
Yeah,
things.
and
But
it feels like quite a would it be fair to say when I say a privilege and a responsibility because you are aware that we have gifts, so yours is the acting and also the public speaking and the responsibility to impart the information in a supportive and encouraging way.
yeah,
Because all the other
100%.
mums are losing the plot, charging around in the cars with the activities or they're, breastfeeding the baby and they've got a new thing happening. They haven't got the headspace for it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
it
and I'm
is this
out of that early postpartum now,
yeah,
right? And I can look
yeah.
back with a clear lens and see, oh my gosh, especially after interviewing 75 plus experts, writing my book, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me. That's what was wrong with my kid. Do you mean this could have been avoided if it was handled, supported correctly? You know what I mean? The amount of time and just emotion that could have been spared early postpartum,
Yeah,
especially, is kind of insane when I think back, and it's like, "Oh, well, the more you know," and it's like, "Okay, I need to" basically, my book and the things I talk about is like everything I wish I would have known.
yeah,
Here you
yeah,
go.
yeah, because
Let me
you
sit
won't
down and tell you. Listen, this is how it's like I tell in the beginning of my book, like I sat my best friend down who had a baby 3 days after me, and she thought I was gonna like show her what happened down there or flash her my throbbing boobs. And I was like,
oh my
no,
goodness.
no, I'm in this back room. I'm 3 days postpartum. You're having a baby tomorrow. We were due at the same time. And I was like, this is what no one told me. No mother, no sister, no aunt, no one told me what went down delivering a baby, what was to be expected, what happens afterwards, what happens 2 days afterwards, and again, 3 days postpartum, and I saved her, I don't know, this shock, right, of all the things that can happen, and not to horrify anyone, just to inform so you can feel empowered just by knowing what could happen
Yeah,
to
yeah,
your
yeah,
nipple, to your boob, what can happen down there, and if no one never really told you, just, like, flat out told you in a serious and humorous way, like, you wouldn't have to go into to shock.
yeah, yeah. I remember, I mean, I was on child number 2, but there was, an Australian lady I know, and the Australians can be quite, how should we say, colourful with their language and their description. I'm married to one, so I'm well aware. And I
Yeah,
remember her saying, "Yes, after you have a baby and then the milk comes in, you get the breasty dumplings." And I went, "Oh, yeah, that's actually yeah." That's kind of but it was this kind of raw grittiness, but as you say, humorous because, we need the humor makes it so much easier to kind of take on board and absorb. It really is. It really is. If it's too serious, if it's too kind of this is what happens, here's the clinical blah blah blah, what's going to go on, you can't cope. It's just too much. But that kind of humor, the storytelling element of it as well, is really really powerful. Now,
yeah, I
I've
think there's
got
a
a
great way to combine science and humor and storytelling, you know what I mean, to really help moms feel, educated, right? I just want to educate more and more moms.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's been very interesting. I think we were talking just before the podcast began about sort of the silences, the how is it that that mums don't know before you have your first baby, there's like this silence around. You say, oh, I've got these plans. When I have a baby, I'm going to be prime minister. It'll be fine. And those with babies around you will be like, that sounds great. And then when you have the baby and you say, maybe not prime minister, they go, thank goodness. But what do you think has happened? Why do you think there are this silences around the grittiness, the power, the practical realities of having a baby and becoming a mum? What are these silences?
I think we're kind of in this age now where we're expected to do it all. with a smile on our face and, breastfeed like a goddess and, make everything happen around us just as seamlessly as we did before we had kids. And that's not the reality of it. And we don't talk about just the mental health crisis that is happening and is on the up and up, right? Like 1 in 5 mothers experience postpartum anxiety or depression. 1 in, I think, 4 experience miscarriages. I didn't know that stat. I blabbed to the world I was pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage, and I had another one. And I was like, no one told me how common it was until you say, "Oh, I had one of those," and everyone's like, "Yeah, me too, me too, me too." And it's like, "Oh, I had postpartum anxiety." It's like, "Oh yeah, me too," or "Me too," or then another mom is there, and she's like, "I think that's what I'm experiencing now." Right? It's just a matter of talking about it more. And I mean, the human race, we're meant to be like born and bred into villages, right? That's how it was back in the beginning. The aunts and the moms and the uncles, like everyone helped out. You might even have other people feeding, nursing your baby, right? All
Yeah, with the
family
wet
and friends,
nurses.
neighborhood, these villages and our minds, our bodies were actually humans were meant to be brought up in this sort of environment, not this stress out mom that's still bleeding out that has to go back to work in 6 weeks and, where we don't even like know our neighbors half the time, especially in LA. I don't know how it is worldwide. I know in certain smaller towns, it's like everyone knows everyone. Here, it's just like there's so many millions of us. Like we don't even get to know our neighbors anymore. I'm like, shouldn't we, like, at least for safety reasons, know who we're, who we're living next door to? And if we do, you can be that saving grace for that mom and you come over and you deliver groceries and don't even ask what's needed, just do. You could literally, I mean, I have a resource that says do all these things for a postpartum mom, don't even think about it. But also like, I don't know, chat GPT, what can I do for a postpartum mom that just got back from the hospital and not be too imposing? But, I guarantee you it'll list you a plethora of things. So
I
even if
will.
you
I
can't
will.
think of it, there are resources out there, whether my site or a lovely chat GPT that can tell you how to be more supportive as a
Yeah.
community member to lift up these moms. Because let's be honest, we run things.
Yeah,
We run
we
all
do.
the things. And if we're
Yeah.
not supported, the world will fall apart. And we can actually see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm going to come back to your point about the postpartum anxiety and depression. I mean, I got a theory. I'm going to throw it out at you, but it was from my own experience as well with my second child. I remember hearing a documentary about what postpartum depression was, and I was experiencing that, and I had a 3-year-old at that point. I was pregnant with my second child. We'd recently moved, and I suddenly went, "Oh my goodness." I know that there with a lot of things, there's going to be birth trauma and you have those elements as well coming in. But I suddenly thought, is the postpartum anxiety and depression loneliness? Is that what's actually the huge yes, there's kind of the hormones and we have like the blue what is it? Is it 5, 10 days afterwards you can have the kind of the hormonal crash and you get the baby blues. But actually it's a societal thing rather than necessarily purely medical and hormonal. Because so many women will have had their communities at work. And as you say, I mean, someone like Los Angeles, I mean, I've not been to Los Angeles in like 20 years, but it's a lot of driving. It's not really kind of little communities where you can pop in and have a coffee and walk around. Is that sort of a fair kind of assessment of
Yeah.
the urban place?
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
every little city is like so different from each other. And there are pockets of that, right? And there are pockets that are not of that, where it's like, oh, it's probably not safe because it's so busy, right? And trafficy. Mm. What's interesting is I was interviewed, I don't know, it was a Fox News stream of a bunch of different news interviews, and it carried into a bunch of different radio interviews, because it was a topic of the Surgeon General just came out. The U.S. Surgeon General just came out with a warning about how parenting is one of the most, I don't know, it goes on about one of the most hardest and it's creating a lot of distress and mental illness. And he goes on to say that in the statistics and the studies show that 80%, something like that, don't quote me on it, parents are lonely, right? So 80%, close to 80% of, and that's men and women, once they become parents, are quite lonely in it, which is, of course, that leads to a ton of other things and a ton of other
Yeah.
issues. Um, I'll have to pull up the exact, because this is about a year ago, the exact quote, but it was like, it said, "Parenting is hazardous to your health." And it was like, "Oh, that's
Hang on.
intense." Like, come out as a surgeon general and be like, "Parenting is a hazard to your health." And I was like, "That's kind of intense." But then you look into the research and you're like, "Well, it is, because this system isn't set up to
No,
support parents," right?
no,
In the
no.
US, I don't know how it is over there. I know in a lot of countries, childcare costs are insane. You're expected to go back to work, but then, like, your income basically just pays for childcare, so
Uh-huh.
you're just working to pay for childcare, but then you don't wanna lose your job because you can't advance in your career if you lose your job, right? So it's all of this, and so it's like, yeah, it becomes hazardous to our health. Our cortisol level, our stress level, we're lonely, we feel like we don't have the support we need, and when anyone feels like they don't have the support they need, whether it's in the workplace or home life or parenting, like, it's causes massive loneliness for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. And also the thing is with the loneliness, they're already so conscious of the effect that has on elderly people.
Mm,
And if you've got a lonely old person, they're gonna spiral, absolutely spiral. But it's those, I think it's in Okinawa, one of these blue zones where you have these kind of little old Japanese ladies and Japanese gentlemen who are like 125 and they're still kind of playing mahjong or whatever it is. But they've got
yeah,
community because every day go, "Oh, hi, hi, how are you?" Blah, blah, blah. Um, and they're fine and buzzy. And that's the thing as well with us as mums. I mean, again, it's so hard because coming back to your point about the village, women, we do community, whereas the chaps, they're like, "I'm focusing on a saber-toothed tiger. Bob is next to me. We're focusing on a saber-toothed tiger." They kind of communicate
yeah,
next to each other.
yeah.
Whereas women, and coming back to your, for instance, your mums in your fitness group, yeah, the fitness was good, but it was kind of being in the group and the chatting and being in a circle and talking to each other. Um, Having that is so very, very important. But what's happening is we are taking that energy, which is so important to community cohesion, and it's going into work because that's where we spend our time. And then what happens is we have these lovely babies, and we go, oh, and you're already out running on empty, and you've got to create a new community on top
You
of
do.
everything. And
Mhm,
it's
on top of
that's
everything, you have to, like, be the contractor of village building,
yeah,
and that's kind of where I started with all this, and I was like, "Well, I've built villages for mothers and pulled in experts and connected them to each other, and I'm really felt called to do that, on a global scale. Like, what if I can connect moms in every stage to what they're needing at that moment, you know? What if I can create some sort of research system, a mom bot that can, send them to valid, vetted information instead of Googling away and referring to, who knows what doctor from some research study that, may be crap, right? And so that's exactly what I'm building, something that I wish I had more of, right? When I was raising my littles, and something that's just accessible, right? Where you can go online and you can connect and you can reach out, pull out some information, listen to your gut and follow it with some questions. Cause I think we've separated ourselves a little bit from that, right? Our instinct,
yeah.
that motherly instinct is real and it's strong. And I think we're
Oh,
inundated with so much information. We question ourselves, we compare ourselves, and then then we become even more depressed and more anxious, right? Just really getting back to those gut instincts. And then if you have questions, like go to someone you trust or some vetted resources, right? I mean, and what I became as this franchise owner was, oh, well, ask Carly. Well, ask Carly. She knows. Well, ask Carly. She knows. And I was like, cool. I'm gathering this Rolodex of people, and I loved referring them out to others that I knew and I trusted and I loved. Because in some instances, it helped save their lives. It helped save their
Yeah.
marriages. It helped, pull them out of some postpartum depression and anxiety. And um, man, it's important. It's important to be the contractor of your own village, and to, if you don't want to, and that's too much, like, I'm for hire. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Hire out someone to help build your village, and I will. Um, because it's just, again, it's one more thing to do. And I talk a lot in my book also about getting your partners on board, with some very specific information that you should know, that they should know, because you're in it together. For most people, you're with a partner, and if you're not, and you're doing it as a single mother, there are even more so, you have to build that village around you. And boundaries, right? Like, know who to say no to
Oh,
when
yes.
it's just maybe
Oh,
not
yes.
great, not the right fit. Be okay to say goodbye to some of the things that just don't serve you anymore in motherhood, that were, like, maybe okay before kiddos, and just being empowered to do that, to protect your time and your energy. And because we all know, Zoe, right? Like, if mom's, like, out of it, checked out, angry, sad, all the things, it affects the entire family. And that family goes out into the world being affected, and then it affects your entire community. And so if we have a bunch of moms that are not well, it's like shifting entire communities and cities. And I think what is driving me the most, in this mission, is that maternal mental health is the leading cause of pregnancy related deaths after birth. So the suicide rate for mothers early postpartum is as high as it's ever been. Um, like, the top causes of maternal mortality, it's like, I can't, is in that first year postpartum. And, it only takes you talking to a couple of these dads and looking at some of these babies that now don't have a mother anymore, that really, lit a fire under my ass to be like, this is not okay. Even for women that are advocating for themselves. And when I say, and the systems are broken, it's because some of these doctors aren't referring out, right? If something's not working, there's one beautiful mother who was advocating for herself, and was going to the doctor and being like, "This doesn't work, maybe I can try this." She really wanted to get well. She was a very outgoing, spunky person beforehand. Postpartum depression hit her hard, and the doctor, pretty much, he said, "I'm gonna prescribe you some birth control. Here you go, because you should probably never do this again." And then she killed herself.
Wow.
And I get teary and I get like, every time I tell that story. Um, there's I mentioned the story in my book, and the foundation that the husband has started, um, and it's this tiny baby girl, and her husband left and that was when she was advocating for herself. So I can only imagine someone who's lost in it, that has no partner, or no, maybe will, right, left to advocate for themselves, like,
All
what's
the
happening there.
confidence, because there is so much. I think a lot of women, we go through our lives of, well, I have to say yes to this, and I have to listen to this person, and I should do that, and I should do this. And boundaries are very hard. It's a
Mhm.
skill that isn't taught.
Yeah.
I find women in their late 40s and 50s are very good with it, because they don't care anymore. Um, but but it but it's something that really, ah, we need to be talking to younger women about this,
Mhm.
about, you don't have to please everybody. You can say, as you're saying, you can say no, or put limits on the amount of time you're spending time with people, or listening to your gut and going, this isn't serving me. acknowledging the
Mhm.
radiators and the drains, and having the voice to say, I need help. This is not right for me. I was talking to a
And getting a
midwife about,
partner on board.
yeah, exactly. And saying, no, this isn't
Thing.
yeah. This isn't just me having a grumble. This is like, I need some help. I was speaking to a midwife yesterday, and I'm going to put the podcast up a bit later today, and was asking her for kind of, tips on a good birth. And she was great. She had 35 years experience, originally from Texas. So, no nonsense, had 6 babies herself. So, she's brilliant. But she said, coming back to the listening, to that sense of yes or no, which is so strong after you've had a baby. And she said, it is the advocating for yourself. If you get the wrong answer from somebody, so you go to a medical professional, obstetrician, even midwife, whoever, and they give you something and they dismiss you, you keep looking for the right person until you are helped, because your struggles, physical, mental, everything, that is real. And coming back to your point as well, Carly, as mothers, we are foundational, not just for our families, but civilization. And I know this sounds terrible, but there is such a different response to when children are left motherless, be it through death or the mother going. It's quite a different response to when they are fatherless, through death or the father leaves. It's really interesting. We just, again, on that level, as humans, we know it's wrong. It's wrong, and how important the mother is.
Yeah.
Hugely,
Vital.
hugely.
Dinner's burning, the washing's multiplying, and someone's crying. It could even be you. If your evenings feel like survival mode, the Command the Chaos Mum Life Management Planner is your first gentle step back to calm. It's a printable 80-page guide and planner to help you reset your routines and breathe again without needing to become someone else entirely. Start your reset today. The link's in the show notes.
Again, I'm kind of coming back to the younger mums, or not even the younger mums, but the women in their sort of 20s. I don't know. I almost feel that we sort of need to be having conversations with them before they have the babies. I don't know, because it's so hard after you've had a baby, processing all of this and going, oh my gosh, it really has changed. How can we reach the women before they have the babies? Have you got any thoughts?
That's the key. That's the key, right? Is to and I was on a news show recently pre-selling my book, and she was like, "Who's this book for?" And I was like, "Everybody." Right? The more people we inform on what mothers, who are the foundation of what we need, the better we can support them. So I was like, uncles, aunts, grandmas, grandpas, mothers, dads, brothers, sisters, cousins. The more, I mean, how many times have you read a book and you're like, oh my gosh, my husband should totally read this. He never will, but he totally should, right? Like, we should really have our partners be reading and educating themselves on this sort of stuff, because then you have the random uncle that's like, oh, my niece is pregnant, I should refer her to this. Or, oh, like, what, right? The more we know, the more we can spread solid, good information to prepare these mothers to, again, I'm all about not just surviving, but thriving. And so honestly, just the more people know how to support the women, how to support the mothers around them, the better off we will be, right? If you think about it. And if we can be more open once we have some of that information, and we're, again, at this age of technology and how it can really bless and connect us. We're
Yeah.
connecting from cross seas right now, um, is really huge. And so I really think it depends on everyone becoming more informed, so that, like, so that the bachelor doesn't have kids and has a guy friend that does, and his wife is going through stuff, and he's like, I don't know what's happening. He's like, oh my gosh, my sister read this book and she told me about it. And like, your wife probably has post, right? We should be seeing bachelors be educating dads potentially on some of these things, because that is possible. You know what I mean? It's possible. Just the more we talk about it, the more we inform about it, the more people we can help. You'd be surprised how like the most unexpected person, you know what I mean, could end up saving a life just from the ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to go on some quite blokey podcasts. You need to be on the podcast where you got a big gruff fella asking you questions, and then you're like, right, this is it. This is the reality. Boom. Because the chaps are going to ask different questions as well to the women. So, but yes, no, I think it's very much, it's such an important mission, and having that honoring of the mother, the role of the mother, I mean, again, I'm going to come back to sort of the history and the anthropology that we've touched on. I can't remember which culture it is. Maybe it's somewhere in South America, but if the mothers died in childbirth, they had the same burial ritual as the warriors.
Wow.
This absolute acknowledgement of just, I don't want to say how hard it is in a woe it is me, but just like, this is it. This is amazing. This is
It's a very,
incredible.
very important work, right? And I don't think that's downplayed a lot. Just the unpaid, multi-trillion dollar unpaid labor, right? Of mothers. It's Society would not function without us. And I read something recently and talked about like why why in history, men have succeeded and surpassed all these things like so much faster than women, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, we know a lot of the historical and then the restrictions women had and all that sort of stuff. But and it basically summed up like, well, the husband has a wife, the wife does all these things for him, and it listed all the things that they do to support them. And if the roles are reversed, how much more successful women would be than men, right? If we had someone taking care of and supporting and lifting them up and doing all the things and the household is, and yes, I understand like a lot of, especially modern relationships, like men are meeting these women and they're really taking on the tasks that they should have always been taking on, and then things are shifting. So I'm not going to stand here and bash on on men, but with our history and with all these systemic gaps, they're not quite fully on board because they're not fully informed, right? Even in the workplace, right? Studies show that when a mother is supported in the workplace with the proper parental leave, with the resources, with the things she needs, their revenue grows. These companies that really have it down, they have like childcare built in, they have really great healthcare plans. These companies are doing awesome. So it is actually proven that when you support moms with all the things they need, your company will actually do a lot better. And yet, women are going back to work, 6 weeks later. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, let's give a man major surgery and have all these symptoms postpartum and send them back to work in 6
You
weeks
go, off you
and
go.
just see how things go. Just let's see how things play out. It
I
would
mean,
be such a fun to see, right?
it's such a contrast because again, historically, there would be this period called the confinement after the woman has had a baby, and it can be sort of 6, 8, 12 weeks. Again, I mean, Jewish tradition as well. You have, I think it's 6 or 8 weeks. You're enclosed, and then you have your ritual cleansing in the mikvah as this real sort of moment. The bleeding has stopped, and you are starting to emerge. In the meantime, you've been nourished, so you can emerge, and so you can look after the little one. I think your point about the big companies that have the childcare, so mum can pop down, see the little one at lunchtime, or, I got to breastfeed at coffee time, whatever it is, you have that flexibility. And I have, again, anecdotally, those women I know who have gone back to work and have had that kind of balance, that's where it's been successful. But again, historically, women always worked, but it was in the domestic context. So the man's out in the field going, doing all the manly things that he could die from because it's backbreaking. But the woman's at home spinning away because the yarn is going to contribute to the household economy. The weaving is going to contribute. The bread baking is going to contribute. All of this. But you can pick it up and put it down, because if you've got a small child who's like, I'm going to run into the fire, you can drop the drop spindle, save the child, and then come back to the drop spindle. But you are still contributing. And it was just a much more flexible way of doing that. So these companies you're describing have a big element of that you can still have this connection with the child, have the lunch with them, and they know mummy's coming back, and you can still do the work. I think we need to, in some ways, rethink the working model for women who are of childbearing age to have more of that flexibility. Yeah.
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 We're
Very
in this
important.
rat race, where it's like a badge of honor when you've worked overtime and you're making X amount of money, you know what I mean? But it's ruining families,
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking because I've sat down with mothers who are like, I would like to go back to work. I love working. I love what I do, but I really don't know if that's possible for me anymore with a baby. And I'm like, man, these should not be problems that we're facing here in the US. Like, we're literally one of the worst countries, the worst in the world when it comes to parental leave. Um, why are we so unhealthy? Well, there's a
Might be a
lot of
factor.
things that we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Might be a
Yeah,
factor.
when a mom can't properly bond with her baby and is forced back into the work field, the workforce, that affects the baby for the rest of their life. And so we're not really factoring in how this fast-paced world that we're living in and throwing these parents back into after babies, how it's truly affecting these little ones long term
The most
of
vulnerable.
not having that nurturing support, right? Or missing out on that nurturing support because mom couldn't find proper healthcare,
Yeah.
and was not well for the first year of
Yeah.
their life. That has a
Yeah.
tremendous impact as well. And so I've been working and talking a lot with parental leave experts that can get you more and more time, but it's tricky. It's tricky within all the federal laws and depending on your work and what kind of work and the state laws. But she's able to work her magic and get, 6, 7, 8 months sometimes, which is like, oh my gosh, huge, huge to be able to have that. My friend from Canada, she just keeps having babies, and I'm like, "What the heck?" She goes back to work for a day, and she's like, "Oh, I'm pregnant again," and then has the whole year off, and then, and I was like, "I guess I would just keep popping out babies too if I got paid leave for an entire year with every baby." It's, like, unheard of around here.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't.
I did, because I did spot that on your website that you had this specialist who was specifically for finding the parental leave. Um, but what I loved as well, coming back to your website, yes, you've got the lady who is not sleep counselor but can help mums with the sleeplessness. You've got kind of the nutrition side of things, but you've also got the financial advisor. And
Yeah,
I went,
it's huge. Yeah.
that is brilliant, because we're always focusing on, kind of in inverted commas, the wellness, the physical and the community.
Mhm.
But actually, coming back, for example, to those mums who, let's say maybe they are committed to work and they've gone, it's too much, but I can't afford to stop. To have that kind of financial advice and have somebody from the outside come in and say, right, your goal is to support the family and but not lose it completely, either you or the children or your husband. And I can do that, and I can help you. I think that is just brilliant to have that as an
Yeah.
extra element. So
Just smart to know where you are and where you can go, right, with your finances. There's so much that just statistically the man in the relationship handles, right? When they come setting up, whether it be insurance or, what they're paying into. And we're realizing this generation of older women who are coming into, massive millions of dollars are going to be transferred into these hands of these women, and they don't know anything about anything. They don't know where they're at. They don't know where they stand. They don't know after their husband dies who's the financial advisor. Like, I never met him, right? Like, just take note, sit down, and if they're talking to you in a way you don't understand, like, request that they do or get someone else. There are plenty of financial advisors out there be happy to work with you. And so I work with a friend of mine who I trust and has sat me and my husband down and just shared with us stuff that, like, we just didn't even know. As much research, as much things we have done to think that we know all the things, it's their expertise. So it just goes into, like, sitting down with an expert to fill you in on stuff that, like, I mean, let's be honest, our brains are constantly going, do we need to be experts in all the things?
gosh,
No.
no.
There are people who are experts in their field and they love it. And so you get to go to them and ask questions and get answers so that you can feel safe and feel protected. Um, she has story after story, like sitting down and people are like, oh, I have insurance on her but not on him, or vice versa. And you don't like to have those conversations because they're a little morbid about, like, what happens if I die or you die, or but, like, you need to have them because it's always a possibility.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
you love your kiddos, don't you want to know what will happen to them if something happens to you? You want them handed over to the state and not your own mother or aunt? Like, that's what will happen if you don't have a plan in place.
yeah, yeah.
Can you use your insurance as your own bank to take out loans and do different things? Like, and we talk about, and what's interesting is often when men set these up, they're like, oh, that's plenty of money if she passes away and I have insurance. Like, that's plenty of money. It's like, okay, let's sit down, honey, and let's really discuss this unpaid labor that, like, you would now be over. And it's like it's calculated out to be like $265,000 a year if you calculate all the things, even working, stay at home, doesn't matter, all the things that need to be
The
taken
cost
care of.
of a nanny, the cost of the chef, the cost of the house cleaning, the cost of the personal assistant who's keeping on tabs of all the activities in the social world.
Yeah.
It
And if
adds up. It
you're not
adds
going to
up.
be able to like keep up on life, right? With that much insurance, if she's gone. Anyway, so it's just about being smart and informed and having your money work for you. We work so hard for it. You know what I mean? You might as well have it work for you and then really um have options when you retire. You have options if you're saving for college, saving for university, right? Have options. People are kind of doing it all wrong, and there's ways that we can have options and then have them be tax free, which is really cool. You know, not everyone's going to
Yeah.
college these days, right? Some
I
kids
think,
are inventing apps and making millions of dollars. They're not going to college, or
or even,
they're
I
choosing
mean,
not to. Yeah, you wanna be able to
one of the,
use that money, is what I'm saying, for
yeah,
their life and for their endeavors or for a business venture if it's smart, right? And sometimes these college savings, that's all they can be used for, right? And so maybe people paid into them, and then there's like, well, if you're not gonna go to college, then, and there's other ways to do that. And so I think it's really cool to have someone on your side when it comes to that kind of stuff.
that's super smart. I mean, I'm going to be talking to a lady in January, February. Nicole Mitchell is her name, and she's like a finance coach, and her target are the women in the girlies, she calls them, in the 20s and early 30s, and saying, okay, let's get this together. And she's also going to
So
be
by the
targeting,
time you're here, you're like so
exactly,
set.
Exactly, because once you've got that sense of this is how the money works, this is what I can do, stewarding it, and you
Yes.
also have an idea of kind of investments, responsibilities of this nature. When the babies come or you've got the husband beforehand, you're having those conversations already. I mean, I have my poor husband. He's just minding his own business, living his life. And what was it? A couple of weeks ago, we're talking about how much information we actually need to know, and different people
Yeah.
having different gifts, which I acknowledge now. I'm happy to delegate. So the windscreen wiper, the squirty, wasn't working. And I asked my husband to do it. And he said, yes, would you like me to show you? And I went, no.
No.
He said, but what if I get hit by a bus? Because that's the phrase we use. That's the preamble to like a big morbid conversation. What if I get hit by a bus? And I said, if you get hit by a bus, I have an 11-year-old who loves all the building and the twiddly things. I said, he will watch a YouTube video and he will do it for the rest of my life. So I think my husband's a little bit deflated by that. But I suppose my point we've come full circle, actually. Taking a really, grim, morbid topic. But then you say, well, what if I did get hit by a bus? Who would fill the windscreen squirty things? Who's going to do the cleaning?
I figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very true. It's very true. I mean, Carly, I'm just so impressed with what you have created, and I'm seeing in you, I'm seeing the connector, I'm seeing the community builder, but somebody who's really leaning into their gifts and saying, this
Thank
is
you.
something that I have been privileged and I have this responsibility. I am giving this to the world to help others. And that's such such a powerful thing. Such a powerful thing. And this website and this kind of it is the village. You've got all the people in it who have their different skills. You've got the grannies, you've got the auntie who's quite good with the money, saying, right, this is what you've got to do. And you've brought it all together. It's just fantastic. And you have a podcast as well, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. My show is We Got You, Mama. You can find it on YouTube. I'm gonna have Zoe on my show too, and so you're gonna find her on there. And yeah, and it's interesting because when people are like, "Well, who are you looking for on your show?" And I was like, "Well, okay, moms around the world, and they basically need and would love to be connected to anything that's going to help them, right? And so it's like it's a little bit of everything, right? Which is really cool. It's like, yeah, you can get into the the brain health and the neuroscientists that we have on there, and you can get into finances, and then you can get on to we spoke to a doula about feeding and what that looks like, and health and nutrition. um we're also launching a whole mompreneur section that's gonna, for entrepreneurs who are mothers, and resources for them, coaches for them, information for them, AI courses on how we can simplify our
My
lives a little bit
goodness.
better. Or
The
better.
the the
I had
the efficiency
yeah.
the
Yeah.
efficiency now.
Like, I mean,
Oh,
I kind of had a mind-blowing conversation, a couple days ago on my podcast. It's not released yet, but she's, the co-CEO of a e-women's network, which is global, and it's something I'm a part of, and she's in the digital innovation side of the business, and she just talked about ways in which she uses it to lighten the load, like, hey, can you give me a workflow? I'm setting up for this party, I'm 3 days out, and here's what it is, and here's my expectations, and it can just spit out a timetable workflow that works around your kid's nap, your work schedule, your pickup, and the grocery store route you need to go to pick up the things you need to at the times of day that are best to go do it. Like, I mean, can you talk about, like, just releasing releasing some of this mental load that we take on? It's a really, I think, awesome resource to help our moms, to help with scheduling, to help with, again, just like these workflows. Like, if you don't need to access more brain power to consume and learn some of these things, then don't do it. Don't do it. We're
No,
already exhausted.
no,
So we need to
no.
outsource, right? And learn the things that we need to, and then grasp the things we need to from these people, from this technology, and then take it with us into our lives.
Yeah, take these tools and use them. I mean, I've got a freebie floating around on my website, which is the top 3 AI tools for mums, and it is things like this kind of, I mean, all free that you can just
Yeah,
use, and it's like a personal assistant in your pocket. It comes out,
it
and it's
is.
brilliant. It's brilliant.
Don't
So,
be afraid. I know it seems very overwhelming, this age in which we're kind of living in, because I came from no cell phones, no internet, right? All the way through like where we are now. And even having a conversation about it recently with my daughter, she was like, so how was that, like no technology to like where we are now? And we had a very actually deep conversation on technology, and that's a whole other podcast in and of itself, on what that's the damaging effects of it, you know what I mean? But if we can latch on to the positive aspects of it and learn from people like Zoe and those 3 things, and just use those 3 things, right? And then add on, learn more. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. Like, we don't need to make everything so overwhelming and stressful. Life is crazy enough as it is.
yeah, yeah. Keep it simple. Say no
No,
and delegate.
down
So
and
I'm going to
delegate.
and delegate. Now,
Yeah.
for all the mums who are pregnant or have a little baby or whatever, if we were talking beforehand about a freebie that you have that is like it's a guide for the community or the grandparents, the aunties and uncles, the friends, how to look after the mum, the newborn with
Yeah.
the newborn.
Yeah.
Where can people find that?
It's just on the homepage of my website. You can scroll down, you can enter your information. It'll send you a beautiful graphic that I made, and it's meant to like stick on your fridge. So if someone's like, what can I do? You're like, go look at the fridge. What can I do
That
to help
way,
you? You go look at the fridge. Moms need to be watered, they need to be fed, they need to be supported, right? And so it kind of is just a go-to list of, I don't know, there's maybe like a dozen plus things on there with like little pictures. So if you're a little kid and you don't know how to read yet, you're like, go to the list, and it sees like, dishes, laundry, water mom, right? And kids can bring you a water, seriously, for the entire family of
I love
how to
that.
support a mom. Early postpartum, or like, honestly, like any mom, like, can you feed and water them? Great. If someone like brought me a water all the time, or just heavens, just refilled the filtration thing as often as it needs to be filled, that makes, pun intended, fills my cup. Like, when people do that. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I recommend just slapping on the fridge and just referring people to. And then there's also that, like, little postpartum note that, like, if they recognize some things that need to be, sorted medically, that you're up on that, and that you're in tune with the person you're caring for.
That's beautiful, and I think as well, having that in and amongst the daily things, the water,
Yeah.
the food, the wiping of a
Yeah.
bench top, and by the
Yeah.
way, if she's doing any of these things, we need some help
Yeah.
here.
There's
That's
always
a
laundry, there's always trash, there's always recycling.
always
If you're pumping parts to be washed, if you're always bottles to be washed, like, there is literally always something, and all the little things, as you know, add up. Um, and so if we can just take on all the little things, those become big things, and they're a huge help.
they are, they are. Carly, it's been an absolute delight for all the ladies and maybe the few gentlemen who are listening to this. There'll be more details of how you can connect with Carly in the show notes. And it's just been a delight. For anybody who's listening, please like, share, and subscribe this. Obviously, share this with ideally, anybody who's having a baby for the first time. That's who we need to listen to this. Send it to them.
Or ever planning on having a baby ever.
Yes, just send it. But yes, please like, share, and subscribe. That'd be absolutely brilliant. All right, Carly, it has been a pleasure. And thanks to the technology, we can speak across oceans and continents. So yeah, a joy.
Thank you so much for
All
having
right.
me.
God bless. God bless.
Love the podcast and want to help keep the kettle on? You can support the show. Think of it like buying me a cup of tea or helping cover the cost of the biscuits. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for keeping this kitchen conversation going.